Hello everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Home of Politics. I welcome all the subscribers, returning viewers, new subscribers. Continue sharing, commenting, and turn on the notification button so that you can remain updated. Ladies and gentlemen, we see the price of fuel right now in Kenya is the topic of the day, and it has brought a lot of problem to us because we see everybody is lamenting and complaining because they see the government and EPRA means Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority. They blame these two bodies that are responsible for fuel prices. And here, as Kenyans, people should not blame the government so much and EPRA body, because the increase on fuel prices or fuel cost is a global phenomenon, and it is not Kenyans alone who are affected. We have countries like Tanzania and others. In fact, Kenyans are at a better position because when you compare the increase in price of Kenya and other nations like Tanzania, they are very high. And therefore, what are the problems that are making, or what are the factors that are making us to experience a lot of increase in fuel prices? Now that it is a global phenomenon, it's not a national problem like in Kenya alone. The first reason that we have here, we have the Ukraine and Russian war. The war have been going on for a very long period, for months now, and we see Kenya as a nation or other nations depend on these countries, that is Russia and Ukraine. In fact, these are the more developed countries, they are the superpowers, and they supply a lot of commodities across the world. Now that the two conflicting nations are still on war, they are stopping the shipping of commodities from overseas, and it is directly affecting us. Now that we know the supply of fuel, it is more dependent from other nations, and now that these are directly affecting the supply, it means that these nations should manage the little available fuel amongst themselves, and this is what is leading to the high cost of fuel. We also see that there is the production cuts by OPEC. We see the OPEC means Organization of the Petroleum Export Countries, and the cut here is affecting the cost directly, simply because OPEC's reduction have resulted in the decrease of global supply of oil, counting for a substantial portion of the price surge. This is because there are so many countries that supply and produce oil. Now that these countries have just at once cut the supply or minimized the supply of fuel, it means that right now countries are experiencing drop of quantity of fuel that have been received from many time ago. Now that the supply of fuel is very little, it means that the little fuel that is available will be sold at a high price, and the countries that will receive this fuel will depend on their money, because if you cannot buy it at an expensive price, then it means you cannot afford it. And therefore, our nation as Kenya uses that oil, and it is important that we understand it is not the fault of the government or EPRA, it is things to do with the global phenomenon. Another factor for high cost of fuel is that we have limited refining capacity. We see right now the refineries that used to refine oils, they are under maintenance. This means that few of them are functioning right now, and we see if the few refineries are able to process these oils, it means that it will lead to lack or very few supply of fuel. And now that not every refinery is refining fuel, it means that the refining power of these few ones will be very low compared to many that have been functioning. Now that almost all the refineries are under repair or maintenance. It means that the few ones that are working right now will produce just a little amount of oil, which will be sold expensively now that many nations are in demand of this oil. Global market dynamics is another reason for high cost of fuel. This is where some factors in the global market dynamics include the local competition for this fuel. We also have the transportation costs, and we have fluctuation of the prices of crude oil. These are some of the factors that are directly affecting the cost of fuel. Now that when the production of fuel maybe, or the cost of the crude oil, that is natural oil that have not been refined, can be fluctuating, maybe can be produced at a high cost. It means that if the crude oil can be sold at a high cost, then it means after refining this crude oil into the finest petroleum or fuel, it means that the final product will be sold at a higher cost than what it was bought, that one, the crude oil. It means that you cannot sell that one in a very low cost. And so if this crude oil is being produced at a high cost, then the fine or end product will be sold expensively, and that is affecting the cost of fuel right now, and it is very high. We also see the transportation cost. Then the transportation of this crude oil and other things that are associated with fuel is not so cheap, because it has to be shipped from different nations that are producing these products. And now that as we are consumers and we are waiting maybe for these products which should be readily consumed, the costs that have been used to transport can be calculated all along from the market where it have been produced, and arriving here in Kenya, it means we will purchase it expensively for our consumption. And those are just factors that are affecting the fuel directly. We also see that we should learn how to manage our condition right now, because more importantly, the rising of fuel prices is not confined in Kenya right now alone. We also have countries like Tanzania and others that have been affected 100%, and putting blames or misunderstanding on this regime or EPRA. This is the body that is responsible for controlling these fuel prices and other things. It will not be important for now. The thing that people should do should just understand that the fuel increase in price, it is just a global issue, and it is important also to recognize that the increase in fuel production, it is a global factor, and it includes those reasons that I've just explained for you here. Ladies and gentlemen, as now we know that the fuel prices are high, what should be the solution to this high cost of fuel? We hear some of the people are giving out suggestions that the government should at least opt for subsidies, so that to cushion us from these costly fuel prices. But I think the issue of subsidies will not be very effective here, because right now, even the situation of the state that we are in, it is the result of the previous regime. For instance, we know that former President Uhuru Kenyatta took loans, and those loans are right now multiplying, and it is the obligation of this government, which is being led by President William Samoei Ruto, to make sure that these loans are being repaid before they increased to a high cost. And therefore, for Ruto's government to meet the repayment obligation of these loans, they need to strategize on how they can at least balance the consumption right now and to pay the loans that came from the previous regimes. But right now, our nation does not have even enough funds to introduce the subsidies, and subsidies can be introduced maybe, and in future it will cost us more than how we can manage to stay or to live with these fuel cost that is fluctuating. The best thing that President William Samoei Ruto or this government should do, it is just but to stabilize the fuel. And stabilization is everything, and it will help us at least to regain and be normal in our situation, that will not be too expensive or take us through a harsh tunnel. And it will not be very easy, and it is not going to be very easy actually for this president or for the leaders to stabilize this issue. It is a matter of time, and the president and his government should at least look for ways to stabilize. Stabilization will help us not to experience very high cost in these fuel prices, and we will be able to maintain the same level which we can manage. I don't know what is your opinion about this and the issue of fuel price increase, or you can send me your suggestion about the analysis. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.